Hello and welcome to part 2 of this Taurus North Node Transit recap. So if you have not seen part 1, I highly recommend checking it out. You don't necessarily need to watch it first. It does kind of give more of the lead up of what we're going to talk about here in part 2. Part 1 was very much like, what do these concepts actually mean? Like, I did the video before the transit even started where I hadn't lived the energy yet, and my intuition gave me a general understanding of what the transit was bringing to us, which I shared in that initial video. And it's not that I did a bad job. Actually, I think I did a pretty good job, but I definitely did not have a real lived understanding of what these concepts meant. Things like embodiment, and like, what does that actually mean? What does it actually entail? And so part 1 is like my journey into the depths of like, how did I even come to get inside my body? Long story short, I did. And this video is about what happened next, because this is the part where I could not have foreseen, because I did not truly understand, like, what does it even mean to be embodied? And off of part 1, you know that I define embodiment as being able to feel what is really happening inside of yourself, inside of your body at any given moment, like in real time, to be present with the sensations of your body, whether they're painful or pleasurable, all of the above. You're seeing it. You're riding the wave of what's going on inside your body. Embodiment. But you know from part 1 that what used to live in my body was just this like rock solid clump of pain that took up every square inch of my body and basically operated my being from my shadow. It like squozed out the edges. It came up in really like volcanic outburst kind of ways because I was ignoring it so heavily. And so once I was able to open up to holding space for the full range of my human experience, like I would for a loved one, like I would for a client in a session, I was holding space for myself. That allowed for a lot of safety. It allowed for my nervous system to come back to equilibrium. It allowed me to find a sense of peace. And at that point, in that safety, emotional release is not only possible, but highly likely. Like, I was listening to Brene Brown talk one time, and she was telling a story about her daughter, and how her daughter had this like awful day at school, and all the kids were making fun of her, but like Brene didn't know anything was going on. Like when she picked her up from school and like brings her home, and they walk in the house, and like the little girl closes the front door behind him, and she just like lands on the front door and like slides down, like just starts crying. Like, as soon as you get to safety, as soon as your body knows you are safe, emotional release will take place. So that's where, you know, I think there can be a tendency to lean out of pain like it's a sign of something bad happening, but that's where we're just pressing pause, and it's only going to come back later. It's going to live in our shadow, or it's going to live in our body. And so getting back in our body and feeling what's really going on, a lot of the times what's really going on is that something hurts, something doesn't feel good. And basically throughout this transit, my relationship with pain has changed a lot. Like, there's another Brene Brown quote that she talks about where like you can't selectively numb emotions. And I realized that like I was very pain avoidant. I was very pain avoidant. And with that, I was also like, basically I was leaning out of my body because I didn't want to feel the pain. And when I leaned back into my body, the first thing I got was pain. And so I'm like, God, like, fuck this. Like, I hate this, you know? More in part 1 about that full experience. But the thing is, and this is the part where like I just couldn't see it because my body was so full of pain at the time. And I think subconsciously I knew right what I had coming to me first and foremost was purging past pain, was like figuring out how to transmute all of this pain that I have never dealt with, that is just, you know, press snooze on it and it lives in my shadow now. And now my body's full of all of this. And what happened though, when I started like really working through the pain and getting, no, Stell, go on. You want to be in the video? Lola got to be in part 1, so Stella gets to be in part 2, right? You gonna be in part 2? What do you want to tell those folks at home, Stella Dog? You want to give them a message? You love them? You love everybody? I know you do. You're so good. You're such a good girl. Sometimes don't you just need a little bit of attention? Don't you just need to be seen? I think so. Me too, still. That's a good girl. Yeah, so even though pain was the first thing I got, you know, after the first couple months of really transmuting all of the pain, not all of it, I'm still working through it. I'll show you the drawings I shared last time too, where I do still have pieces that are working their way up out of my subconscious where I put them when it was too much for me to handle. But as I worked through it and as I started opening up space inside of myself, when I go in there, what it is not painful, it's pleasurable. And that is what opened me up to pain and pleasure are on two sides of the same coin. And that coin is physical human experience. That coin is the beauty of our ability to sense what is happening inside of ourselves. You know, and that sensory experience can be filled with pain. Absolutely, that's part of it. When you put your hand on a hot stove, your nerves are going to tell you about it. They're going to light you up immediately with a shit ton of pain because they're trying to get you to get your hand off the stove. They're trying to get you to lean away from whatever it is that's hurting you. So the pain is very informative. But on the other side of that coin of the sensory experience is the ability to feel pleasure. So when you come back to equilibrium, when you put your body back into a space where you are calm and safe, emotional purging, emotional release, crying, screaming, yelling, all kinds of things will come up and out of your vessel so that it doesn't live inside you anymore. And then once that space is open, we have this open space where now you get to attract something new into that space, you know? And likely what you are attracting is a reflection of your leading edge, who you are now, and the things that were stored in your physical body, in your pain body. Those are things that could have happened like back when you're 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, like things that you literally have no conscious memory of. Things that happened, that wound is still in there. And when we get those out of the way, we start to replace and like fill back up that space, and the ratio of what's going in looks different. Like the ratio of pleasure to pain. Like I would say when I was a kid, the ratio of pleasure to pain, you know, probably like 60% pleasure, 40% pain. Like that's not bad, you know. I know a lot of people who have it way worse than that. But there was a significant chunk of painful things, and I'm better aware of that now than I ever have been after all of this purging and bringing things up out of the shadow. I'm like, wow, my happy childhood was pretty shitty in a lot of ways, but you know, still pretty good overall. But now I attract like 90% pleasure and like 10% pain. And two things with that. Number one, the pain that I do attract is being processed in real time. My capacity for allowing it to move through me is now better because I actually have space inside of me. It doesn't just automatically get caught in my body because it's like getting stuck in the filter of all the other pain that's already in there. So now the pain that I do attract, the little bit, the 10% or whatever that I do attract, I stub my toe, people call me bad names, like things happen, shit happens. Like I don't get my way sometimes. Like we all have things that cause us to feel pain in this world. And now I have space to work with it and a capacity to not identify with it that allows me to more process and digest and release it in real time. So it's not ever just kind of getting stuck and lodged inside of me. So that's number one. The new pain that I'm attracting is moving on through. It's not like setting up camp and sticking with me as part of my identity forever and ever. Amen. The other thing, the second thing, is that this 90% pleasure that, you know, the amount of pleasure that I'm attracting has just gone up and up and up and up and up as I continue my spiritual journey, as I continue finding happiness inside of myself, as I continue to, you know, more find my sense of self-worth and self-validation inside of myself rather than looking for it from other people. That takes away a lot of the opportunities for other people to hurt you. When you don't need their validation, when you don't need them to tell you that you're worthy, you're no longer being disappointed all the freaking time about all the people who aren't telling you the right things. You know, that's basically where I was. Like I was so heartbroken that nobody understands me. And now I kind of like it that nobody understands me. I have a whole other perspective because I do think that that's like, that can be an advantage too. You know, nothing is all good or all bad, but so that's what's really cool about purging all of this past pain is that now when I'm manifesting the pleasure, I feel it that much more powerfully because I'm also letting the pain come. You know, like we cannot selectively numb our emotions. We have to let it all come in or we have to turn it all off. And so even though my life has been is really good and just gets better and better and better, I will say that there was a certain part of me that couldn't even really feel how good my life was because I was still so like locked up in pain in my body that was sitting in my shadow. And so, yeah, like that all makes a lot of sense to me now that, you know, when you have your pain body is full and like already clogged with all of this unprocessed pain, and then something pretty minor happens and you explode, it's basically the definition of the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's not saying that the camel is weak. That's saying that there's a shit ton of stuff already on the back that this one little thing like just was the breaking point. And so I do think that, you know, that's been my main takeaway is that as I will allow myself to feel pain, the real win, the real benefit is that my ability to feel pleasure is like off the roof. Like I've made my way, thanks also to the person that I was talking about in part one who so casually and off the cuff was like, yeah, that's why I love meditation because it's just holding space for yourself. And like that opened up meditation for me. And that's how I got into all of this. But that same person sent me a podcast episode from the Deja Blue podcast. And that episode led me down the rabbit hole of listening to this person's podcast, like as a regular listener, like consuming all of her content, all of her different conversations. Highly recommend this podcast. And through guests that she had on her podcast, that led me into Ziva meditation with Emily Fletcher. That led me to Layla Martin. That led me to sacred sexuality and sex magic and like all of these. Ooh, this is another good one. This one is on the Sahara Rose podcast, I'm pretty sure. And I'm going to link a few different options for you guys in the description if you want to check them out. It's like a whole gift basket of like sexuality and pleasure and all of these yummy, delicious, amazing things. But note, like, we're, an hour into this contemplation if you watched part one, and it opened up this heaven on earth of sensuality and sexual delight, of pleasurable delight, opened up by leaning into the pain that was stored in my body. Like, that was step number one. But what came out of that was me getting to reconnect with my sexuality. And this is the Sahara Rose episode, where I forget the lady's name right off the top of my head, but I did link the episode in the description. But she was talking about like all of these different kinds of orgasms. And that linked up with something somebody else was saying about, like, I forget if it was like one of the chakras. They were saying it's like a sacral orgasm, or like a splenic orgasm, or something like that, where like one of your chakras is having an orgasm. And that's what I'm talking about with like this ability to feel pleasure. Like, you start to realize that the ability to orgasm, the ability to have your energy spiral up into a heightened state of blissful, zenned out awareness that you can ride for however long you can ride it for. Like, the ability to do that and get there and hold it and feel it and experience it and be in it. Oh, there's like all of these different orgasms that you can have. And she's like, I really want women to like go deeper and like don't just settle for the easiest one to do. Really go into it and experience these other ones. And the one that I can attest to, that I know for a fact I'm having on a regular basis, is a throat chakra orgasm. And I'm talking about like sitting in, it'll happen in meditation sometimes, it happens in journaling a lot, where like I am letting it flow, like letting my consciousness express, and or like if I'm on a podcast episode or something, and like just the feeling of getting to use my voice, like it's even starting to build now. Like, you can just pull the energy up into your throat chakra, and it's so much like appreciation, and it just like almost will explode and send like the shaking, like orgasm feeling like through your entire body. And it's in your throat. It's like, what is happening? But like the body has not even just 7 chakras, not even just 9 chakras. Like, I was watching this other thing the other day that's talking about like the chakral network inside your body, where like for example, they were talking about like for your root chakra, there's I think they even said like 4 sub chakras like on the bottoms of your feet, and then there's some on like the backs of your knees, and like all of these other little energy centers that like are connected then up into this main chakra, the root chakra, for example. And that's going on like on all of these different places on your body. There are these little energy centers where like you can spool it up into an orgasm. You guys, like, am I the only one that didn't know this was possible? Like, are you holding out on me? Is that what's going on? Because I'm new here. I'm new to this information. This is brand new information to me. And to be living it is like, that's really the main thing that I want to say, is like, this is so much better than anything I had in mind when I was like all talking about inner peace and blah, blah, blah in that video before the transit started. I am so glad that video was so helpful to so many people. Like, that makes me really excited. But honestly, like, it's also so fascinating to me to look back at like how accurate my intuition was, and the reason that we even have water energy intuition and earth energy in the physical realm, because the water energy is so hollow and empty. It's like you can say the words, but like you don't actually feel it in your body. You don't know what it means. And so now I see, and I can only imagine, after the 18 months of Aries North Node, that I'll look back on my Aries North Node content and feel pretty similar of like, yeah, I said all the right words, but I had no fucking clue what I was talking about, Because, like, here I am talking about purging past pain, and I could have probably done a way better sales job for it. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be this way, but I probably could have sold even more people on it if I had been like, this is a path to your most delightful physical experience. This is a path to your sacred sexuality, to possibly the best sex you've ever had, sitting in a room all by yourself, having a throat chakra orgasm. Like, dude, like, I could have really sold it. And maybe that's, you know, I clearly wasn't meant to, because that's not what happened. But I hope that this kind of deep dive recap version back into the transit from this end of it, I hope that that possibly connects some dots with, like, what did it actually feel like to live these last 18 months? That being said, I would love to hear from you in the comments what it felt like for you to live these last 18 months. This is my version. What was yours like? If you haven't checked out part 1, definitely do that. The Aries North Node content, there's a whole library of what is coming up for that transit at the time of recording this on July 4th, 2023. Check that out. We have that transit starting very soon, and I've even released the first batch of looking at the individual North nodes and how do each of them get the most out of this Aries North Node transit. So especially for all you Taurus North nodes that are hanging around my channel, do check that out, because there's a little chapter in there specifically talking to Taurus North nodes about the Aries North Node transit that you may really enjoy. I also am really feeling called into specializing this channel, maybe not cutting out every single other thing, but like really honing in and purposely, intentionally honing in on continuing our conversation around the North and South nodes. I personally really love it. I find a lot of pleasure in getting to use this framework to have these conversations with you. So all of that to say, if you do have any questions at all about anything to do with the nodes, I would absolutely appreciate getting to hear it, because I feel like that's part of something I'm supposed to be talking about. So much of what you guys put in the comments like spurred my contemplations and continue to deepen it and send it off in all of these beautiful directions. So thank you so much for being here and contributing your energy back into this space. I know I appreciate it, and I see you guys connecting in the comments, and that I know you appreciate each other as well. I think that's going to be where I end it for today. I do hope you've enjoyed this look back at the Taurus North Node transit. Until next time, do take care of the beautiful being that is you, and have all kinds of pleasure as much as you can. Any kind of orgasm, you know, an orgasm buffet, if you will, and so will I.